All right, Atepu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Haru Nefer, Nechadak. This is Kasak Ma Keparu with another video for you. And in this video, we want to talk about how to connect to higher consciousness. But before I go into that, I'd like you to hit the like button on this video. This is your first time to my channel. Welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. And if you're looking to take your spiritual knowledge to the next level, we have free ebooks for you. You can download those ebooks and start reading right away. Just click on the links below. Also, if you are interested, please support us on Patreon. You can do so for as little as $1, $5, or $20 per month. You get exclusive access to instructional videos on the esoteric, videos that will take your knowledge of the spiritual arena and the Kemetic spirituality to the next level. Last but not least, please share this video with family and friends so we can get this revolution started. YouTube is doing everything they can in the background to quietly suppress this information. All right, so we need your help in passing the information and proselytizing the word of the Kemetic spirituality to get that out there to help save the planet. So welcome to another broadcast. And in this broadcast, I want to get a little bit deeper into the idea of connecting to higher consciousness. Now, unfortunately, out there in the conspiracy theory arena or in the Hotep community or in the conscious community, whatever you want to call it, there is this idea that higher consciousness or being woke is about reading and acquiring of information. Well, we know from the Kemetic tree of life, the Port Neteru, that the deity that governs information is Sebek, and Sebek is on the lower trigram of the tree of life. However, when we want to get into higher consciousness, especially connecting to the Akashic records or God's storehouse of knowledge, we have to climb up the tree and tap into Tehuti or Jehuti's wisdom. And this is a big problem in the conscious community because they think that being woke, being conscious, or having higher knowledge is about acquiring that knowledge through information. And that's absolutely wrong, okay? Because information is very limited. It only take you so far. Information is not good, especially the left brain, which is the faculty that governs the acquisition of information, is not good at morality or moral questions. Which is why we see the world in the way the state it is today, because those in positions of power are left brain thinkers, and there is a paralysis of analysis where they don't know how to resolve certain moral issues. Okay, so we get this paralysis where we are constantly bumping our heads against each other. Nothing, no progress is being made. This is why our ancient Kemetic people, our ancestors, solved this problem by understanding that in order to solve life's dilemmas, especially, again, the moral issues, you have to tap into the right brain, the higher consciousness, okay? So those individuals who are out there running around thinking that they're conscious and they're woke because they read books, whether it be Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, who else is out there? David Icke, things of that nature, are sadly mistaken. Because when you start getting into higher consciousness, then it's a game changer. You start to see things different. You start to act differently. It changes you in a very, very profound way. All right. And I don't blame those individuals in these groups solely, because you're coming out of a Western society which is predicated upon book learning, and this is coming from the major universities that that really specifically the prestigious universities like Yale and Harvard, who really just pride themselves on coveting specific information and knowledge and having the best and the brightest in terms of professors and teachers to work with you, okay? But we know from Sekert, and she is the goddess of spiritual power, the goddess of structure, that in order to understand things from a cosmological perspective, you must also understand that there is a time and a place for everything. And although I talk a lot about the left brain and how our society is going to hell in the handbasket, the left brain does serve a purpose, and it is good. However, it has stepped out of bounds, is being used for things that it should not be used for, okay? Just in the same way, when you look at issues that revolve technology and so forth, you cannot use the right brain for that. That's not what the right brain is for. So what you have today running around is your ministers, your preachers who are attempting to use the left brain to solve moral dilemmas. So, and they come up with incorrect answers, incorrect solutions, and therein lies the problem. They don't understand how every component of the brain, and we'll also say the mind, has a form and a function. And you, as a whole brain individual, must understand cosmologics, understand how everything is interconnected and has a place, and knowing when and where to use certain faculties. Because if we look at the Kemetic tree of life, we know that, you look up there's the 11 spheres, and each one has a function and a purpose to be used specifically at a set time and place. You just don't use them arbitrarily. And this is what we are seeing in today's society. So I want to talk a little bit about tapping into your higher consciousness and really building that rapport with it. All right. First off, let's take a look at the Kemetic story of Asar and Seth, how Heru, the story, it focuses around Heru, our hero, Horus, the hero, who did battle with Seth and conquered Seth. But it was only when Heru tapped into higher consciousness was he able to defeat Seth. Because, see, Heru was using his left brain. He was battling Seth, and it was ending in a stalemate. Consequently, Heru was losing. Stalemate is a loss because he was not able to recapture the throne of Kemet. See, and our ancestors thought as in terms of symbols, analogies. So Heru and Seth were not individual beings fighting each other. In fact, they were one and the same. Let us take a look at that really quick, because I think this illustrates the point rather nicely. So let me see where I can get this Horus Seth. Let me see what this is. If you take a look here, where you will see how Horus or Heru has one foot on Set. And this is coming out of the Metunet to the hieroglyphics of ancient Egypt, depicting the battle. But more importantly, what I want to draw your attention to here is this right here. And this is coming out of Wallace Budge's book, I think, the Portnet Teru. I'm sorry, the Book of Coming Forth by Day and by Night, also known as the Book of the Dead. You see that Horus and Seth are one and the same, because Horus really is battling his lower animal emotions, his emotional instincts. And it's only when he rises above his emotions, meaning his emotions don't control him, he is the master of his emotions, does he defeat Seth in the battle. The analogy is there, the symbolism is there. Again, that's how our ancestors thought, because they were whole brain thinkers, but more predominantly right brain thinkers. Okay, and we'll see a little bit more here, a depiction of Horus slaying Seth, but again, with the full understanding and knowledge that Horus and Seth were not separate individuals, but again, one and the same. And this is also where we get the traditional Christian idea of Jesus and the devil. Okay, there is no devil. See, our ancestors conceive of Set as the animal instinct within you, because they created the tree of life, which categorized every aspect of the spirit, including your animal nature. See, you have that built into you, and you, as a divine being, must come into a realization of yourself, of who you really are. And to do that, you must subdue that animal spirit. However, as you see, the two are one and the same. Left brain thinkers, Western man, came and looked at our stories and then separated the devil from man, separated Set from Horus, and created this fictional devil on the outside, and in so doing created God on the outside and not within you. Because remember, when we talk about tapping into higher consciousness, we're really talking about connecting to source, connecting to God, Nebecher, Yahweh. And there is no outside God. It's within you. It's all one. But the left brain, one of its tendencies is to its segregated thought process, meaning that's the faculty of which it operates by. So it looks to separate, label, and defined. And this is the problem that we're faced with in the world today. All right, so I want you to clearly understand that. And also know that our ancestors had a specific process on how to connect to higher consciousness. It wasn't just that you read that will allow the energy centers to flow to connect to source. You must be very much aware of that. Okay? Otherwise, you will be going in the wrong direction and misled, greatly misled. All right? And the vision of the brain. So we understand what we're dealing with here. You see, we have the left and the right hemispheres of the brain, right? Each has an assigned function and purpose, okay? We know that what we call as Western man developed in Europe in a colder climate, and they developed the left side of the brain, whereas African people of color, right brain, developed in a hotter climate, and so doing developed the right side of the brain. We know that the right side is good for organizing information, abstract meaning, context, spatial relationships like map reading or shape recognition, visual information, face recognition, intuition, emotion, imagination, detecting motion, music, and art awareness. It controls the left side of the body. Whereas the left brain is in charge of speaking, reading, writing, listening, analyzing information, reasoning, logic, sequential thinking, time awareness, controls the right side of the body. Okay, and then it goes down. Each hemisphere of the brain is injured, what one can expect to happen. But we don't want to go into that right now because we're more interested in talking about connecting to our higher being. You have to understand that when you're looking at, well, what some will call higher consciousness as the higher mind and the lower mind. It's okay. We can use those terms interchangeably. Higher, lower, it's all right. But what I want you to understand is that there is a division to your spirit. There is a division to consciousness. Let's put it that way. And our ancestors has mapped out that division. And let me just say this. Our ancestors were masters of understanding the spirit. They were masters of understanding the universe. And we're still discovering the works that they've left behind, which give us a great insight as to how your spirit operates and the full potential of what you can do as a divine being. And this information has been hidden and kept from us, specifically by those in the Christian religions, because the Christian religion's only goal is to dumb you down, to make you deaf, dumb, and stupid, and blind, and so on. They focus primarily on disinformation, misleading you, dumbing you down, so that you can be controlled, manipulated. Enough said. Let us look into how there are different divisions of the spirit, the higher and the lower mind. We'll call it the 9 levels of consciousness. So let us watch a little bit of this, which will give us a greater understanding of it.
Like we said, there's one oversoul that is directly above your own individual soul. And like we said, it's a non-physical energy that has multiple soul or spirit perspective. So not just, we already defined that. And by the way, from now, we'll just define all the different 9 levels. This is the first level, but we're not going to go into the details of which each does. We'll do that later on in this video. So for now, let's just kind of list them down. Below that oversoul, the second level of consciousness is the individual soul or spirit. This is a non-physical energy. It handles the soul or spirit reality of your soul or spirit. And as we will explain later, the soul is pre-incarnation and the spirit is post-incarnation. We'll explain that later. Below it is the higher mind. This is a quasi-physical energy. Again, we will define what that means later. This one handles or is a parallel reality to your physical reality experience. In other words, it's not physical, but it is parallel. Or you could think of it as the mirror image, although it is the one that has the causative, it's the one that makes your physical life happen. So in the same way that, Christians say our Father, as in the Our Father prayer, and they say something like, let it be done on earth as it is in heaven, or the Egyptians said as above, so below, or, other people call it the star mirror. The physical reality experience mirrors the higher mind reality, okay? But there are some differences, which we will get into later. Below that, on the fourth level of consciousness, is a template reality. Again, quasi-physical energy, we will define what that means. And it is the blueprint of the physical reality level. It forms the template, just like the same way you can have a blueprint to build a house. This is where the blueprints of reality, physical reality, are done. Below that, you have the collective automatic mind. This one now becomes physical energy, okay? This is where the collective agreements on the operative rules of physicality are held, such as gravity, imagine if gravity was negotiable. Well, you could say it is, but imagine if it was handled by you and I at this low level. So we have to remember how to do it. We have to remember to turn it on or off or whatever. So it's better to leave it at a place where it works collectively according to a certain agreements for everyone playing this game.
All right, so here's where I want to just pause this for a second so you can really understand how our planet was imprisoned and taken over. You see, when you are looking at this, let me just go back to this, the collective autonomic mind, we'll just say the collective consciousness, and Carl Jung spoke about this, the Swiss psychologists. This is where the ruling elite, the Illuminati, learned to manipulate our consciousness. And in so doing, they did a number of things, one of which was to have us manifest a reality that we don't want, that was in alignment with what the Illuminati wanted. So we're experiencing a reality that they want, okay? The other thing was in this collective consciousness is the connection that we all have to one another. What I think transfers over to other individuals far across the planet, and they pick up on that energy, that thought, and then they can also manifest those realities. That's the law of Ma'at, the interdependence and interconnectedness of all things. But that that collective consciousness also allows us as individuals to share information. This is why I talk about when you really want to put together an accelerated learning program or higher education system, you should also include the idea of tapping into the collective consciousness where people can share information on a psychic level. All right. And with that, as you see, let me go back to this part here. Going above that, you'll see there is the higher mind. This is what I was talking about, was the connection to source, or the connection to Akashic records, or connection to Tahuti's wisdom. Remember, in the battle of Horus and Seth, it wasn't until Horus sat at the feet to receive counsel from Tahuti that he was able to defeat Seth. And the reason he was able to defeat Seth, because Tahuti restored his third eye, the Uchet, his connection to higher wisdom, the intuitive faculty. And he was able to gain that advantage. And that also happens to be the faculty of the right brain. The right brain looks at things holistically. It can see very far ahead. And it's not limited to time, space. The left brain is limited to time, space. In fact, the right brain, there is no time, there is no space. Everything is one. Keep that in mind, which is how you're able to psychically see the future, psychically obtain wisdom and knowledge that's beyond this time. Okay? Now, unfortunately, we're not taught how to do this, how to tap into that higher wisdom, tap into the collective consciousness. And let me explain why we're not taught this. It is the job of the religious institutions that they should have been teaching us this. So let me stop here and just say, if you're watching, please hit the like button, and you get an opportunity, please donate to the channel. Would be appreciated. You see, let's go back to this chart here. If the masses of people understood what the collective consciousness was, what it could do, then we could disarm the ruling elite. They were the first ones to understand its potential on an occult level, tap into it, and imprison the planet. But if the major religions were to teach about the collective consciousness and the collective agreements, we could change the very fabric of reality today, instantaneously. This is why this knowledge was kept from us. This is why your so-called higher learning institutions don't teach this stuff. This is why they don't teach you how to tap into the higher mind, Tahuti faculty. So let us continue.
Below that, you have the individual automatic mind. This is where you have physical, your individual themes of your life are stored. For example, maybe you always felt that you needed to be a doctor or a driver or whatever it was, somebody who's really likes the ocean or nature, or maybe even a gangster or a thief. It was, or maybe you have certain gifts or talents that are inborn. This is where the themes of your life are. Or maybe you keep facing the same challenges over and over, and that's your little, personal Mount Everest to overcome. This is where those things are stored, because you do have a life purpose. Below that, there's a level of the next level is called the physical mind, and it is we call it unconscious, not because it is deep down under there. Simply means because although it is part of your physical mind, you're not usually aware of what lies there. Okay, again, this is physical matter. It's literally is physical matter, and this is where your beliefs are stored. Beliefs are thoughts, but let's call them beliefs for now, and we'll define them further later. Just below that, you have the emotion level. Okay, it's called subconscious because quite often we are driven by emotions. Sometimes we even hide and bury them, but they're very easy to feel if you actually open yourself to feeling your emotions. And then we have the one that we are all very aware of and very conscious of, and that is the thoughts that run around in our heads all the time. We hear these clearly, although we're very confused about what they are, where they come from, and what they can do. Again, we'll get into that shortly. So those are the 9 levels.
All right, so what you have there is a division of consciousness. But I want you to understand clearly, when you look at the physical mind consciousness, that is where our education stops. It doesn't go any higher on there. We don't get into the oversoul because they don't want us to understand all of that. See, their whole basis of operation, or modus operandi, is to have you look and say all that exists is nothing but the physical mind consciousness. And in fact, they do everything they can to steer you clear of unconscious awareness, the spirit. And everything it's baked into it, in the religion, in the education system, in the media, there is this diverting your from the unconsciousness, the unconscious state, and focusing your awareness only purely on the waking state. Well, we don't know what happens after death. Well, we don't know what dreaming is all about. Well, we really don't understand the subconscious mind. And they kind of like just toss it aside. Meanwhile, in the secret societies are diving deeper and deeper into that. And on previous broadcasts, I talked about this. I said, there's a great film called Interstellar, where they build to go through a whole to come out of the other side of the universe. So, and I said, you know, we can go to other galaxies simply by tapping into the unconscious mind or the conscious mind. Because you're always conscious. There's no really unconscious, but there's a conscious mind. You can project your spirit. The spirit can separate from the body, and you can project your spirit to other planets, other solar systems. But because, you see, those in academia get their funding to do research. And if you are a so-called scholar and you want funding to understand quantum mechanics or interstellar warp drives, they will fund you for that. And they will support you in your efforts to build a quantum drive that can propel you to here in Alpha Centauri. But the minute you start talking about quasi-reality, the template reality, there's no time-space that you can project consciousness to different dimensions and different galaxies. They will shut you down. You will be ostracized. Your funding will be cut off, which is telling you that there's something to that. You understand? There's something to that we're not taking serious ourselves. We are discounting it. And this is where it's evident that most people are programmed by the dominant society. Because the minute you start talking to friends and family members about the quasi-reality, the template reality, the oversoul, you know, the collective consciousness, you're ridiculed and made fun of. But see, our ancestors, the Kemetic people, understood that one is a mere reflection and aspect of the other. You can't have one without the other. The two of them make a whole. You cannot have the conscious mind without the subconscious mind. You cannot have physical reality without quasi-reality or metaphysical reality. Deep science now has made a shocking discovery, which our ancestors always knew about. Because when you look into different substances that comprise the universe, you know, you could say, well, we know the universe is comprised of matter, yes. But then science stood back and said, wait a minute, matter only accounts for, what, 30% of what we can see? Not even 30%, less than that, what we can see. So there's something else. And then they concluded that the majority of the universe is comprised of what they call this dark matter, what you can't see. But it's socially acceptable for them to dive into that understanding and that study because they label it in such a way as to make it scientifically acceptable so you get funding for it, dark matter. But when our ancestors come along and they talked about quasi-reality and metaphysical reality as above, so below, then our ancestors looked upon as pagan and primitive. You understand? It's okay for science to talk about the Gestalt theory or the unified field theory. But when our ancestors talked about the collective consciousness and that all things are one and connect to source, that's esoteric mumbo jumbo. Because they play that Sebek game, that naming, defining, and labeling. You see, when modern science comes up with their terms and definitions and labels, it makes it socially acceptable and scientifically acceptable to explore those arenas. But when our ancestors were talking about this thousands of years ago, it was looked upon as esoteric nonsense. When our ancestors said that Everything is Maya and an illusion. They were put down. But now modern science comes along and says, you know what? Nothing is solid. Everything is vibrating. Therefore, nothing is real. We live in, as Michael Talbot called it, a holographic universe. Using those names and terms, now it's scientifically acceptable to postulate that, when we knew that thousands of years ago. When we said that God was one with everything, and we are one with God, again, nonsense. But then science comes along and says, you know what? The universe may be conscious. We may be living in a conscious universe. But we said that. We said that. But because you say it, it's legitimate now. And I'm not sure that you actually discovered that. I just think you're regurgitating the information you've stolen from us. Do you understand? So one of the things that our ancestors understood, and they really based the entire structure of society on, was reaching those levels of higher consciousness. And in order to do that, they mapped out the brain in an analogy, a story. As we know, Osir is the hidden intelligence within you. And Aset's role was to resurrect Osir, to climb from a state of low nature to high nature. And in so doing, it proves that our ancestors understood the workings of the brain and the difference between the mammalian, reptilian, and the neocortex, because they embedded that in their stories. And let's just take a look at that. And here you see it here, where we have the mammalian and the reptilian brain. Mammalian brain is the limbic system. And the reptilian brain is the old brain, the instinctive brain. And the goal in Kemet was for you to rise above those two, to operate out of the neocortex, the new brain. Consequently, in the Matrix is why he's called Neo. And also, when we go back to our model of the left and the right brain, we understand that Osir was called the uniter of Upper and Lower Egypt, which is just an analogy of the uniter of the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. Our ancestors was trying to tell you how to connect to higher consciousness, how to receive wisdom and knowledge from God, from Tahuti. Does that make sense? But we fail to embrace it and understand it because for so long, the propaganda machine from the universities and modern media was out to discredit ancient cultures, to make us seem primitive, stupid, backwards, when all along we had it correct from the very, very beginning. And now we understand the problem with the way the world is today. Is the way it is, the world today is, the problem is that we have the wrong people in positions of power who are destroying the planet. And it was going to rely upon us to restore the balance, not to destroy them. Because remember, they're one half of a whole. But to restore the balance. Okay, so let's get into the idea of connecting to the higher brain, which we know, or the higher mind, is the Tahuti faculty. Now, as the complement to Tahuti is Sebek, and Sebek is left brain thinking. The way you need to connect to higher consciousness is to still the thought process. This is why Tahuti, the hieroglyphic for Tahuti is the ibis bird, who stands in the water with one leg and who's poised and who's calm. That's an analogy to tell you that you must still the thought process. Stop thinking. Stop thinking. Because thoughts are names, labels, definitions come from Sebek. Sebek is information. It's not higher consciousness. It's not higher knowledge. So we must still the thought process. And you should practice this daily. And to help you with this, our ancestors gave us a mantra. And the mantra is whom, whom. And of course, we put before that the mantra that created the universe, the first utterance of God, Om, Om. So we go Om, whom, Om, whom. And when we recite this mantra, it stops the thinking, stops the thought process, and then connects us to source, connects us to the Akashic records, to where we can bring down wisdom and knowledge. And to do this, first, before you practice this, think of something, a question, something that is puzzling you and you need an answer to. Think of that question. Then do your meditation, Om, 15 minutes, clearing the thought process, focusing on the mantra itself. And once you complete that, many people have testified that it's like a bolt of lightning, an inspiration. They receive an answer. They receive the answer that they've been looking for because they shut down the thought process and recited Om, Hum, Om, Hum, Om, Hum, Om, Hum. It allows you, and what this does is puts the left brain to sleep and it connects to the right brain, which is not limited by time and space. And it has the answers to all things. But see, they don't teach this, and they won't teach this. So they don't want you to rise above the mammalian reptilian brain and connect to the neocortex. They don't want you to be Neo, the one. That scares the hell out of them. You represent a danger and a threat to them. Okay? This is the exercise I want you to practice. And now, I want to do this rather quickly to give you all a message while we're going through COVID-19 to channel the higher consciousness, the higher mind, using the same techniques I have just laid out. And these techniques are very simple and easy for you to practice on your own. And what you will discover is that when you do, you will receive insight, new knowledge and information that you never would have ordinarily connected to. Now I will connect to Uti, source wisdom, and then we shall see what insight and wisdom Tahuti has for us. Now, I want you to understand when you're practicing this on your own, you may do this 2, 3, 4 times and nothing happens. That's okay. You must understand that you're building a relationship with the subconscious mind, that the subconscious mind takes time, okay, for it to come to the forefront because you haven't been doing this. And it's a skill that you must learn. And only through practice and application do you get better at it. So don't be disheartened or give up because you do it a number of times and nothing happens, okay? Give yourself time. Don't give up. And if you stay the course, you're going to be receiving all kinds of knowledge and wisdom. You may even become known in your own circle or your family as a sage, as a person to come to when people have problems. And I have my crystals here and my wand. Let us begin. Om Hum Om Hum Om Hum Om Hum Om Hum. I ask that you give us some wisdom and knowledge to leave this broadcast with, so that all may think upon it and it may enhance our lives. To expand one's knowledge, to expand one's consciousness, we need only understand that there is one, and that they all perceive themselves as individuals, but they are not. They are under the illusion that their true nature is the physical reality that stands before them. If only they would connect with their true selves, and to experience it is the key. Experience it is the key to circumvent, to step away from the ego. For the ego is the barrier to the collective mind, the collective consciousness. And with that connection comes love and understanding and oneness. That is the only way. That is the only way. Words are limited. Words cannot express the truth of the reality that we experience, the truth of the universe. You must experience it. And it is the experience that changes the heart and the minds of people. And that is the essence of what a true revolution is. To feel it, to experience it. Words, sermons, stories will not change the planet. It is only when you have the masses connect and experience their true selves through dropping the shield of the ego, will you transform the planet? Because that is where we all connect. And there is no race. There is no gender. There is no thingness. There is a connection to all souls. And more importantly, a connection to God, Him, herself. She awaits you. She beckons you. Come and experience her. She's waiting. Drop the ego. Connect and experience, my people. Amen, Ra. Okay. All right. I want to thank you all for this broadcast and for tuning in. And I hope this message resonates with you. Please take it, meditate upon it, share this video with family and friends so we can change the planet and start the revolution. This is Kasagma Keperu, son of Ma and Tahuti. My aunt is a beautiful goddess Teteru. Until my next broadcast, Amen Ra.